Welcome to the IWRA virtual interview series, which are being hosted to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the association. Today we have with us Professor Aaron Wolf. Welcome, Aaron. Aaron is a professor of geography at Oregon State University and also recently appointed professor of water diplomacy and cooperation at IHE-Delft. So Aaron, without further ado, let's get into that. You've been a member of IWRA for a long time. What or who attracted you to IWRA, and how have you experienced it? What has been your role in it? Tell us a little bit about your engagement with the association.
So I got involved really early in my career. I just noticed when I was doing my research for my PhD, which was on water and the riparians of the Jordan Basin and the politics between them around water resources, is that Water International was where I went almost always for really good information. And so it was through that I started to understand who some of the scholars were, and the organization at the time had a student chapter, and may still, that I joined even as a grad student and stayed really active as soon as I got my first position at the University of Alabama, and became really active. They had a commission, a Middle East Water Commission, that was led by Asit Biswas back in the day, that got a number of scholars deeply involved in Middle East water policy. And I've been a fan and a member ever since.
Great. So you already talked a little bit about my next question, because I wanted to know, sort of, tell us about your professional background and how IWRA supported you in your background, and how vice versa you supported the association.
Sure. Well, what I liked about it, and still do, is that they treat the idea of water really broadly. So we have physical water, we have political water, we have emotional water, and IWRA is one of the few organizations that really deals with all of them very holistically, and does not shy away from difficult political aspects. And so that attracted me. And also, when I went to my first IWRA meeting, in the same room you would find grad students and you would find water ministers, and just really interested in each other and interested in having conversations. It wasn't very hierarchical. There wasn't a lot of big egos, and these are the things that still appeal to me. It's the interdisciplinary nature, it's the problem-solving nature that brings people from all parts of their career path into the same room.
So how, in your long engagement with IWRA, how have you seen the association change over time? And, you know, what has been sort of your experience with the association in terms of its development?
Yeah. Well, I think, oh gosh, one of the things that happened, I think, was there was a period that a lot of the kind of high-level policy people drifted into other venues away from IWRA. And this would have been, I want to say, 15 or so years ago. There was a lot of new action around the World Water Commission. And of course, CIWI would have their annual meetings every year. And I think it just got to be too much, so that for a period of years, I think IWRA was very academic and kind of mid-level to junior academic. And in the last, since that, I think there's been a new, younger leadership that's been reversing that course, and just by sheer attraction and professionalism, I think has been drawing a lot of those high-level professionals and ministers back into the room, just because the conversation is so interesting. And I think of things like the well, the bulletin's really nice to find out what other professionals are doing around, but also just the constant kind of updating of what's happening in the policy realm that helps complement the academic work that supports it.
Great. And then if we turn from the association to the water sector more generally, How have you seen during your career the water sector change, and what have been improvements in the sector generally, in your view? And then the next question would be, where do you see has the water sector actually been getting worse, or were there things that happened more effectively previously where sort of where we have gone backwards?
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, in some ways, water now is the same as it's been since time immemorial. It's trying to figure out how to make a resource that's variable meet our various needs that rely on stability. And there's too much, there's too little, or it's too dirty. So in that sense, I think the problems stay the same. I think what's gotten better is an increasing, from my perspective, an increasing link between the governance questions and the technical questions. So it's not just about getting better gauges or better data, but also understanding that the right laws and the right structures and the right policies also contribute to dealing with the issues. And of course, on the tech side, it's orders of magnitude: access to remote sensing, access to oh gosh, I don't even know what it's called anymore, kind of these smart filters and desalination, and so on the tech side, I think we're in a whole different realm. Where it's gotten worse, I think, to some degree, is a comfort with inequity and a comfort with poverty that makes the problems so much more painful. My sense is in years past, there was kind of a global feeling that we're all in this together, and it's incumbent on all of us to work towards poverty alleviation and the consequent water issues. And I don't get that sense anymore. I get, as the whole world is kind of becoming more insular and more national, we're forgetting about our obligations across borders.
Right. And if we think about sort of going from the past to the future, where are the new challenges? Sort of what are sort of the next 50 years going to bring, in your view? What does the water sector need to do? What does IWRA need to do to really address these new challenges?
Yeah. Well, I think IWRA is good at staying on the cutting edge, simply because because of the young scholars that are perpetually attracted to it, and so they kind of keep us older folk on the cutting edge, whether we want to go or not. So I think that this idea of using citizen science and people using their smartphones to help contribute to scientific knowledge is the kind of thing that the younger generation is bringing in.
Right. So then, since you have been ending on the younger generation, the final and last question, what is your advice to the future generation of water professionals? What should they be looking forward to doing?
Oh, well, I would suggest just staying engaged. I think my feeling always of the water community from the very beginning has been that it's a friendly community, it's an inclusive community, it's a community where, I mean, people don't get into water for the wrong reasons. There's no ego to be satisfied here. There's no, you don't get rich, you don't get famous in water, and most people who get into it are basically just trying to make the world a better place. And so if you're a young scholar who's concerned about reaching out to people who are more senior or have more publications or more authority in a ministry or whatever, I would just urge them not to be. It's a good, friendly community for the most part, who really want to be helpful and really help the incoming generation reach whatever their own personal goals are, because collectively, really, that's the only way we make any positive change at all. Great.
Thank you, Aaron. On that note, we'll conclude that. I know from my experience that the community has been very welcoming. I've, all been young at some point, still consider myself young, and it has been very welcoming. So thanks for the interview.
Happy to do it, Christina, and always a pleasure to see you.
Great.
I hope next time in person and not online, but I'll take any way we can do it.
Yeah, no.